Like it kind of, for me, reminds me of why people don't give generic advice when someone just asks like, what should I do? Because there's a million things. Like John could have told you, hey, like look in these markets and call these people and say these things, but you wouldn't learn start to finish how to have the conversation at each level, or how to think, or how to set up systems, or where do we put our leads, or how do we do our follow-up, unless you were sitting right next to them. So like that's just something that you can take a course, you can pick people's brains on all day. But unless you're either taking action and having a high risk of failing on your own, or just following in someone's wake, it's very hard to do without that. So I guess just for anyone out there that's, let's say, a W-2 earner, they're thinking about transitioning maybe into real estate or something more entrepreneurial. It was interesting to hear you say that you were still doing the stock brokering full time, and you were helping or bringing value to John, or kind of doing some work on the side with him. How did you decide, or like, how did you think about doing it on the side versus doing it full time? And then like, what were you doing for him, or what advice would you have for someone that's looking to bring value to someone while they still have a job? And then maybe, how does it shift when you do it full time, and then you can kind of go all into something?
Yeah. I mean, one, I didn't really have a choice. I was a broke post-college kid, didn't have much of a choice but to do it on the side. Unless I wanted to go home and live with my parents, and I did not want to do that. So, didn't really have a choice but to continue to do it. The idea was, hey, I want to leave this. Let's see if we can make this flipping deal work. And they sell you on the dream of making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So I was like, oh, within a year I'll be able to do it. And that obviously didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, it's, you've got to take stock of where you are. If you think you've got enough runway that you can afford to go into it full time because you've got a cash reserve saved up and you're in a good position. If you've been working for 20 years and you've saved up, it's very different than, someone just out of college, or, you've limited resources and stuff. I would encourage everybody to start part-time just to make sure that it is a viable business and it's something you like, because you'll know very quickly if it's something you like if you get home at 7:00 on a Tuesday and you're tired and you either do some work or you don't do some work. If you don't, maybe it isn't a good option, but if you do it, probably a good chance you like it. And not, the first week you start to do it, because everyone's got that burst of adrenaline to want to do something and stuff. But 2 months, 3 months into it, give it a shot, give it some time, see how it feels. I think, what was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
It was, if someone is looking to like transition full time into doing this, then what kind of like action should they be taking, or like what type of value can they try to be bringing when they're still kind of a beginner?
Yeah, that's always tougher. I think the notion of bringing value to someone has been, I don't want to say overhyped lately with like the Gary Vee stuff and everything, but obviously time is a big thing. And, so if you can work for free or low cost labor, you can do that. But the problem becomes if I'm sitting here, I always try to reverse engineer it from how the person should be asking. So they need to reverse engineer how I'm thinking. And when I'm sitting there and I'm in a business running all the time, and somebody comes to me and say, hey, I want to get involved. What work can I do for you? There's not a lot for me, like now I've got to do the work to come up of like what you need to do and I need to teach you and stuff like that. That's not always the best proposition for me, because I may have, underwriting that I can offload, but now I've got to spend extra time to teach you, and there's nothing tethering you there. You're just offering free work. So the risk is always like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to do this. And then all of a sudden, it, and it's like, well, you can go off somewhere else. So it's like the way I think people need to start thinking more about bringing value to someone else is like, take stock of who you are and what you can actually do. And I don't necessarily mean like, if it's real estate, like what you can do in real estate. Because if it's nothing, it's nothing. But you've got to be somewhat good at something. Like for me, the way I always thought about it, and I wish I thought about it in another way, is like, if I was a 50-year-old guy with 2 young kids who played soccer, and some kids came to me and said, hey, can I come into the office for 4 hours a week and help you, and I'll train your kids one-on-one 4 hours a week, I'd be like, that's pretty interesting. I don't have to pay some trainer to do it. My kids will love it. I get something out of it, and I get some free work. And that's something that I don't have to know anything about real estate. I can go out and do that. And it's the same thing for, coding or website design or, doing fucking laundry. Like there's a lot of different things that you can bring value in different ways, but it's finding the person that has that bucket that needs to be filled. So if you call 100 people, you say, hey, I'll train your kids for 4 hours in soccer. They're like, what? I don't have fucking kids. They don't play soccer. But probably 1 out of 100 does, and it might work. So, it doesn't always necessarily have to be, hey, I'm going to work for free. I think people have a lot of other skills and things they can bring to the table that may indirectly bring value to that person's overall life that may make them say yes. So I think you can get creative with it too.
Yeah. And I think the point there that stands out is I get stuck on the idea of it is self-awareness. You do have to know what you're good at and take survey of that. But there are so many people that are listening or out there right now that may downplay or not really know or think about tangibly like their skills, but they have skills. They just don't know how they can apply them. Like if you ask someone on the spot, like, what are your skills? Stuff that they do every day that actually is a skill. Like it doesn't just jump to mind. Like you don't think about like your networking abilities or your organizational abilities or your whatever, like social media or your technical abilities. Like it's hard to kind of put that top of mind. So I don't know. Do you have anything that's like tangible? You gave a couple examples there, but for someone out there that's listening right now, they're thinking, okay, I'm going to actually make an effort this next quarter to try to bring value to some people. What can I tangibly do to try to do that?
Easiest one is if you're younger, find somebody that's a small company that's older and something in technology, right? Most younger people, technology is almost second nature now, whether it's social media or website or video software and, any of that stuff, even if it's basic, like just the ability to post to Instagram or Facebook, a lot of people don't understand, or like how to create graphics or like how to find certain things. Like it may seem so very basic to you, but I've learned very recently in the last 12 to 18 months how much the older generation struggles. And the more surprising thing is how a lot of the older generation is against it because they're afraid to not show how little they understand, and they don't want to, come across as not understanding it. Like there's a lot of people who struggle with it and they don't want to appear as if they can't handle it, which is very interesting and something I've realized a lot lately. And it's something I used to get very frustrated. I still do when we are slow to implement new technology into our business. And in the last even 6 months, it's been much more apparent to me how much of an effort it is for people to grasp and understand, because it's so second nature to me. And it's so second nature for me to be able to figure it out as well. Like I know that's just something I'm very good at. Like I can go online, I can figure it out, I can put the hours in, I can make it work. Like most things I could probably teach myself from a technical know how to do standpoint. But not a lot of people have that, especially as you get older. So anybody younger, if it's just, I would find, if you even know how to design a basic website, like through Wix or GoDaddy or WordPress, just start searching real estate in your area or just real estate online if that's what you're interested in, and find old websites and then call them, because they'll love a phone call, and just be like, hey, I'd love to help redesign a website for free. All I want is just some of your time or something, whatever you're looking for.
Right.
And see what they say. They may not give a shit about their website. You have no idea. But there's a lot of stuff you can offer that way. I think, what's some other things I think you could do? A good example was one we did personally. For a while, we had a kid, we were trying to make a push into, like, as we have the social media and marketing and content creation space. I was doing a lot of the video editing by myself, and I was starting to get to the point where I was just too much to handle. I was staying in the office till 8, 9 o'clock every day, and it was just too much. And just got a random email just like, hey, my name's Rob. And I do, I grew a YouTube channel for a toy store I owned, and I'd love to help you, grow your YouTube channel and help you with your video stuff. And I was like, Sure. So shot him an email. I, let it fall through the cracks a couple of times. To his credit, he kept following up, eventually got coffee like twice. And then he started coming into the office like 3 times a week for a few hours, do some video stuff, help out. And then, he would listen in on management calls. He would sit in on our meetings. We'd go get lunch and, he could pick my brain and we would just talk and stuff like that. He got to come down on either 1 or 2 of our trips down to Florida. I forget how many. He paid his own way, but we said, yeah, sure, come down, like no big deal. So he got to come down on a trip with us and like ask us questions, ask our manager questions, ask our contractors questions on site, see how we do stuff. So it's like, that was a perfect thing where it's like, I may have been the first person he asked, I may have been the 100th person, but it was just the right place, right time. And, just the right things came across at the same time. So, the technology is a big one, especially if, you have a moderate understanding.
That's really good. I mean, those are 2 examples that most of this audience is pretty young and tech savvy, I'd say.
Yeah.
So that's an immediate one. Like if half the people that I interview on here, and I'm sure half the people you interview on your podcast, they're a little older. They're good at one part of the business, but they're not maybe as savvy as they could be. I hear so many investors and real estate business people that come on here and say, I'm just not that good technically, or I'm not good with social media. They understand there's value in it. There's a need for it, but they kind of all have that need. So if you're a younger digital tech savvy person listening to this right now, that could be an easy door for you to open to segue into a mentorship or getting connected with someone in business, bringing value to them, because I do hear that constantly. How can I bring value to someone that's already worth X amount of dollars or has this many connections? I'm just a kid. Well, that's an example right there that we just talked about. Ways you can bring value to someone that you may not think they need anything, but trust me, everyone needs something. I don't care who you are. Everyone has problems. Everyone has annoyances. Even the billionaire whose kid can't learn how to play soccer. If a coach comes along and says, I'll do it for free, and they actually like this person, they trust this person, you're taking something off their plate.